we nuts? Are we crazy? Why would we have children knowing that they face danger?
Baby, I paint the sky blue. My greatest creation was you.
I was really hesitant about doing this sort of video. It wasn't something that was planned. It wasn't something that I looked forward to discussing. But as the press keeps happening, and as more and more crazy stories and crazy videos come out, I feel like it's necessary to happen. My channel focuses on parenthood, and if I want it to go where it needs to go, I need to be authentic and I need to be honest. And we all know that parenthood has a lot of good times, but then it has some bad and ugly times. And unfortunately, where we are right now is an ugly time, especially if you're a minority, such as myself. If you haven't been living under a rock, I'm sure you heard about the recent killings of African Americans, and especially the most recent, George Floyd. And there's been so much protest because of this killing. And the protests are much bigger than just this one person, right? His demise was the cherry on top of a shit cake and caused everybody to be tired, done, fed up. And I completely understand that. As an African-American woman raising African-American children, I completely understand the anger, the resentment, the sadness, and all the other emotions that are bottled up due to these sort of injustices. But beyond just me, and beyond just adults and you know, people who are sort of used to this, how do we explain this to our children? As a mom, I feel that our children's innocence gets stripped away so quickly, right? So in the effort for me to try to preserve their innocence, I sometimes shelter them, right? And anytime I think about something that maybe I can speak to them about, especially my oldest is 7, I'll say, oh, no, I can talk about that next year, right? Just give me one more year of her believing in Santa Claus. Give me one more year of her believing in the Easter Bunny and the Tooth Fairy. I want her and her siblings to always think, oh yeah, mom and dad, you know, they can protect us from anything. I still want them to hold on to that. But it's getting more and more difficult to ignore what's happening on the outside world. I remember some time ago, my daughter and I were talking about Martin Luther King Jr. And we were talking about his teachings and sort of the time that he lived in. And we scratched the surface of, you know, what his message was for and why he had to say what he said. And I had told her that although that was many years ago, some of that still remains. And there are going to be people that simply don't like you because of the color of your skin. And my daughter was confused by that. But then she finally said, well, if they don't like me, I won't like them. And I was proud of her at that moment because she didn't seem too affected by people not liking her. But deep down that I knew that it wasn't just as simple as, oh, she don't like me and I don't like her. I knew that if people really had this thing called hate for you, things can go crazy real quick, right? It can go from 0 to 100 very quickly just because the color of her skin. Beyond the everyday violence that we face and explaining that to small children, it becomes even more difficult when I have to explain how those people who are supposed to protect us are sometimes the same ones who are harming us. When my daughter and I go over stranger danger and what to do if you get lost, or what to do in a case of emergency, we always say, call the police. They will help you. How am I as a mom supposed to, in that same breath, say, wait a minute though? Given the right circumstances, those police, the same ones who were supposed to help you, can be the same ones who are now harming you. Now, some people may say, well, if you tell her to just obey the laws, just follow the directions or instructions, she will be okay. Make sure her brothers follow the instructions and directions of the law enforcement and they will be okay. Yet, Black people still end up dead even after following protocol. How can that be? And furthermore, how am I supposed to explain that to my children? But the violence isn't just coming from the police. And to be honest, violence isn't just happening against the African American community, right? What about my Latinx folks, the Asian Americans who were being beat up simply because our president, our leader of the United States, called the coronavirus a China problem, right? So now innocent Asian Americans are being harassed, whether they were Chinese or not, all because of this. What about my Jewish people and the anti-Semitic events that happen against them? It's interesting. I came up with a thought last night and I said, most moms will tell you that the most precious gift that they've ever received was their children. And despite knowing that this world isn't ready for our most precious gifts, right? There's murderers out there, rapists, crazy, deranged people. We still offer the world our most prized possessions. What does that say about us? Are we nuts? Are we crazy? Why would we have children knowing that they face danger? Especially if they're a minority or of the wrong skin tone. It's an interesting thought. If things do not change, this situation will continue to happen. Innocent people will continue to die. Innocent people who look like me will continue to die. Innocent people who don't have the right pigment will continue to die. Which means that in time, our little kids will then be old enough to be one of four people: the oppressed, the oppressors, the changers, or the do-nothingers. Which one is your child going to be? Which one will mine be? The one hopeful signs that I've seen, though, is that in the midst of all of this, the protesters are all types of people. Men, women, white, black, brown, Asian, people in other countries, okay? People in I just saw an article, people in New Zealand are protesting because of the innocent killing of George Floyd. That is such an amazing thing to see. Now, I know some people might just be doing it because this is like the new thing. Oh yeah, let's just protest. But there are a lot of people out there from all backgrounds who are trying to do the right thing and make their voices heard and say, you know what, we're not going to tolerate this no more. This is ridiculous. And to those people, I thank them, because if it wasn't for them, then the change that we want to see tomorrow won't happen. We have to use our voice to really speak up about the injustices, again, not just to African American people, but to all people, but especially African American people, because we are so low at the totem pole, right? We're so low. How do we teach our children about the atrocities that are happening in today's world? The atrocities that happened way back then, right? The atrocities that just happened yesterday, while trying to preserve their innocence. Now, this isn't a political matter. This isn't a Democrat, Republican. This is just human matter. This is a human issue. Parents, how are you educating your children? I know we talk about diversity, we talk about tolerance, we talk about respecting people's differences, and that's all fine and dandy, and yes, we discuss those things. But how do you tell them? How do you explain the actions of some of our leaders? How do you explain the killing of innocent people or the violence against people just because of their color of their skin? Not just Black people, Latinx people, Jewish people, Asian people. How do you explain that to your children? Comment down below. Let me know. I want to hear from you.